In the past, we have had people asking, can we ask questions? I had a comment I wanted. It was a burning question, a burning comment, burning issue, a personal experience I wanted to share. And so today we decided we should have that. When you come, please use the microphone, no exception, because that's the only way we'll be able to capture you on the video. You can only ask one question at a time. If we finish with everybody and we still have time, then we can get another one from you. And please be straight to the point. We'll take just about 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute maximum. If you can make it even shorter than that, that's better. And I've asked these experts. They had no clue I was going to ask them. I'm using diversity here, one representing Asia, one representing Africa, and one representing the Americas, all of them there from the north to the south. So, who wants to go first? Question or comment? Please approach the microphone. I see David is recognized. I see George, number 2, number 3, Dr. Nadine, number 4. Can we get those who have not been on stage, please? Number 4, he will be him. Number 5, Carol. Okay, so we have 5. If we still have any more time, we can take that. Let's start with David, please.
Sure, thank you. When I was up there, we were given a prep list of about 6 questions, and I'd spent about 80% of my time preparing for the last 2, and because of time, we didn't get to it. But in that note on how to prevent racism and how to limit prejudice, I was reading this week in the Spirit of Prophecy, Testimonies for the Church, Volume 9. Ellen White talks about the best way to combat discrimination. And it says, chapter 23, as a means of overcoming prejudice and gaining access to minds, medical missionary work must be done. We are to work as gospel medical missionaries to heal the sin-sick souls by giving them the message of salvation. This work will break down prejudice as nothing else can. And so by taking an interest in the bodies of our fellow man of different groups, then they're able to realize that we're all made by the same maker.
Yes. Thank you so much for the comment. That's very much right on point. I have come across that same thing. It's very powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Let's go to George.
Okay, thank you for this presentation, but I have a small question. This is particularly in Africa. I've seen, especially home, young people, especially young men, they prefer ladies with light skin. And I'm not saying that's all, but many, they prefer light skin. I've seen many ladies, when they were black, they will use this kind of product to make their skin light. Yes. So, my question, is it racism? Or is it a mindset already that look at one color as the best? Even in job market, when the boss see that it's a fair lady with a light skin, they are more attracted to deal with that person than the dark one. So okay. I'm just confused. Is it related to racism or not?
Okay, I think this question will go to the ladies more than Pastor, and he says amen to that. But before I forget, George, I want you to refer you to a study that was conducted by one of our former students, Genevieve Bucco. It's published in an international forum. I think we published in 2014, somewhere around there. It was study 12. It was study done in our class, a research class. She did a fantastic study on that specific issue here in the Philippines. You may want to read it, but let me give you to the experts. We're going to ask Dr. Arceli and Christina to help us with us.
I think it's not only an African men mindset. It's also in the Philippines. So you will notice that in the Philippines, Filipinas who are dark-skinned, they take products also that whiten their skin. I would say that's a form of racism because to me it's a preference over racism you see originated from the concept that there is a race or there are races that are more superior than another. In fact, this kind of concept has been the cause of many wars. Like one race thinking it is superior than the other race tries, to annihilate, exterminate another race so that only the superior race will prevail on the earth. So that is it. Like you prefer this kind of person so that your children, you propagate this kind of race. So you are not looking now at the person, but you are looking at the race. So it's like a stereotyping, and this one specifically on the color of the skin. And that is very true. Companies, institutions hire those that are light-skinned. And it's not only like Africans. So I would say it's all over.
I agree with Dr. Rosario. In my country, for example, we are too white, so we want to appear a little more dark, So we use cosmetic not to be too white. And I think that is a preference, George. Even in my country, men are looking for very slim ladies. So the ones who are not very slim, they try to result another things of maybe the personality. So I think this is preference more than racism.
But I would like to add, George, maybe you may want to extend that, like, how do you prevent that? I would say that this begins in the home. I'm not fair-skinned. There are Filipinos who have fairer skin than I have. But I did not have a problem growing up. You know why? Because my mother, from very small, used to tell me, like, in our dialect, maitom apan matahom. What is that? Dark but beautiful. So I had this concept, and I did not care. I may not really be very beautiful. You may not agree with me, but that's how I feel.
Thank you so much. And by the way, I heard that the grandfather of my wife, before he died, he said, black is beautiful. George, I want to say that this is a self-imposed racism. Hundreds of years ago, decades ago, it may have been something that was imposed on your people. But today, if people continue to do that to themselves, it is self-imposed racism. I don't know if there's a concept like that. If there isn't, I have just coined one. Let's go to the next question.
Firstly, I just really want to commend you on this program. For the first time in my life, I can say I sat on a panel and is sitting there now and my heart is beating because this race thing is really, really something serious and important to me. From the time I was in college, because growing up in St. Lucia, I didn't know racism until I went to Trinidad to school, and when the experience I shared about the monkey story and all of these things, it was my first time being exposed to it, and it has really delved deep in my heart, even though I have not, faced it personally a lot, but just to see my people, black people, being oppressed everywhere in the world that I go, there seems to be a problem if you just because you're black. It's really something I really take really personal, and I grew up actually really liking dark skin. I used to wish I was dark, and people look at me funny, and I met another lady like me. She's clear, and she wished she was dark because I always found it to be particularly beautiful. And so, I thank God that I love myself, and I don't care, like my sister said, how anybody feels about me, me being black. I love myself. And I could make you feel in a second like nothing if you really want to make me feel like I'm nothing because of the color of my skin. So I thank God so much when I was here, I didn't have to go through that, because I heard so many stories about people, a lady on this campus who had not gone out for months because every time she went on a bus, people would just block their nose. They blocked their nose on a jeepney, and she just did not go to SM or anywhere else. And so people right on this campus have been affected by it. I was free to be able to go out, and they admire me because even today we were at the prison and somebody called me Rihanna. You see? Because they look at me and they something about, what Filipinos like to see about the shape. So I always got compliments and stuff instead of being like, getting the derogatory stuff. But a lot of black people don't have that privilege. But I take it personal because I'm black. So what I want to ask, my question now goes way beyond my personal experiences right now. We're talking about what do you do on campus to make it better in terms of racism. And we could say all the nice things that we want. The reality is what it is, right? When we have systemic issues or cultural structures that actually help to propagate racism, how do we deal with it? For example, when we look at for our administration, sometime in our schools, we look at the different things. How do we see representations? We could even bring sexism in, but let's just stick to racism. How do we deal with our structures that prevent certain races, regardless whether it is black, whether it is Filipino, whether it is Indian? How do we deal with these issues where systemically or based on our organizational structures or setup, it does not permit people from any particular type of race to have different positions in our church, in our schools, and in our structures? I think this is something we need to look at because we could be as nice as we want together here. When we go back to our countries, we will deal with the same mindset of what we have experienced. Are we going to go back to our countries and make a difference and not put people in jobs based on the color of their skin or their ethnic groups and stuff like that? How do we deal with our systems to ensure that racism does not persist in the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
Thank you so much. We have two seasoned administrators here, Pastor Guizo and Dr. Arceli. They are going to address that.
Firstly, thank you so much. I acknowledge that I'm not the best person or qualified to respond to this. However, it's a discussion. And so we will draw from those experiences that we think are practical and more applicable, as it were. It is true that we do have this challenge. However, one of my old professors, he taught us in undergraduate studies during our theological pastoral formation. And he said, and I'm saying this because I want to link it to the question. And he said something like this, Dr. Wambaleka. He says, C plus C equals G. Confrontation with care gives growth. And I think to a great extent we lack that. We believe submission equals growth, even when we need to confront each other with care. We need to be willing to discuss. We need to be willing to come to the table and dialogue over hot potato issues without any of us growing goose pimples, without any one of us saying, why are you bringing up this card? You're bringing up a racial card to eliminate discussion or to silence. You're bringing up a tribal card. You bring up this to simply look at an issue. It is hot, it's spicy, but let's confront it. Let's deal with this and grow. Now, why certain things continue is because we don't do that. When we should be doing it, we don't. Because it's equal to spiritual. Silence is spirituality. It's maturity. It's godliness. It's being, when you don't say nothing in a committee, when you are just quiet and you wait to say all in favor, say yes, and then you say, yes, sir, you are good. So we perpetuate such things. Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering why we have nominations from this particular race and we don't seem to have diversity here. I'm just wondering, well, these are the only names we came up with. Sure, Mr. Chairman, I think we can do better. Why don't we try one more time so that we color this list? And then another one says, yeah, I think so, Mr. Chairman. I think let's be fair and we don't lose anything. Mr. Chairman, do you have particular interest why you are leaving out certain colors? With joy and with peace and tranquility and serene and we need to do that more often. And I've seen that before in my home union experience We have hot potato issues, and we deal with them. And this morning, we're dealing with the Jerusalem Council issue. It was a hot potato here. But one key issue or fundamental lesson that we got out of the lesson was we will always have issues erupt in the church. We'll always have, points of differences coming up. And if there's something that we should get from today's lesson is we need to come together and discuss and come to a resolution. And so why do such things perpetuate? Because in my humble opinion, we don't believe in confronting each other with care in order to give growth to this gigantic movement.
Thank you so much. You want to add something?
Yes, I was in a discussion where it was asked like, why is there no Asian leadership? Never has been in this institution. And the answer was because so far nobody is qualified. Now you will ask me, how did I feel about that? I thought about it many times. And there can be two answers to that. One is that it may be true. Another is, if it's not true, what are we doing about it? And so, how do I confront that? I'm Asian. How do I confront that with that kind of answer? That because no Asian so far has been qualified. If I don't believe it, what do? I can do something. And that is, for me, I want to be the best that I can be. So that, Dr. Safari, when the other panel members, for example, or anybody who will ask, who is your advisor? My advisor is Arceli Rosario. And then they will say, oh, I don't need to really thoroughly check this paper because I know that professor does her job very well. I begin with this because this is where I am right now. But I just want to prove that where I am as an Asian, I give my best shot. And nobody can question that.
Change starts with me before we even fight those battles outside. Let's go to next question. It came from there. No, he's here.
Before asking, I would like to tell my experience, my personal experience.
Just quickly.
Yes. 5 months ago, me and my friend, we had opportunity to join a company here in the Philippines to work as a bilingual. And my friend, he has already experience in working in a BPO's company, and he told me that we would experience a lot of things regarding to racial discrimination. And he told me that when you see the Filipinos covering their nose, that means they don't want to inhale your your smell. When you see them coughing, you will know it, okay? And on our first week, we went to the company and we started experiencing those things. Going to the end of the story, we had opportunity to have a meeting, all the employees with the operation manager. And the operation manager gave us the opportunity to speak. He said, if you guys have any question, anything that block us so that that doesn't help us to have the opportunity to interact with each other, speak up. And my friend, because he has a child, and the company gave the opportunity to all those employees who have children, when they are working, they can bring the children and they will take care of the children. So my friend, he started speaking. He said that all the Filipinos, they are the same. I found out that the Filipinos, they are the same. Because this happened, I studied here and I had these issues. I came to start working and I still found the issues the same. And what happened is that the Filipinos, they got mad at him. So my question is, how to address those issues when we want this to not to end, but at least to calm down. So when we pass, and then because we know already that it's happening, how can we address this issue so that they may know that we know that they act like that. At least they may not, when they see us, they don't act, covering their nose or even coughing when we pass by.
She's my sister, so I always look up to her whenever something's tough. You want to speak about that?
Yeah. Anik and I were in a qualitative research training primer I was doing. And I was, I'm very proud to be a Filipino. And
It's a proud Filipino here.
and sometimes very conceited. So I had this practice interview with her. We were doing interview, and I called Anik and I said, okay, let's interview about discrimination. Okay, this is like, what is it like? Okay, phenomenology. To be a foreigner in the Philippines. So I started asking her. But I had a big bias. And my bias is like, Ayes is so blessed to be in the Philippines because the Philippines is the best place where Ayes can be. Why? Because Filipinos are very tolerant people. So I had this preconceived idea. So I said, Anik, what is like, do you have any bad experiences about, that was my question. And then about, her sad experience, like this one, covering the nose or moving away in the mall, in the bus, everywhere. And I was shocked. When you interview, you should be calm, facilitating. And I said, what? And I said like, oh, so that trainer said, oh, I'm sorry. I just committed a big offense on interviewing because I was so shocked. I did not know that this is happening. Where was I? For me, it's never an issue. I hug the black children here, the Chinese children here, and the white children here. Anybody, I let them live in my house, eat my food, And so, yes, thank you for bringing this out. And since many people, Filipinos are out there, maybe you here in the audience, and they're viewing us, I would like to make an appeal. I would like to appeal to my people. We are all the same. This question about odors, this is a universal question. This is a universal issue. Everybody smells. Don't you smell? You smell too. So why do we act like that? So like confronting with care. So I'm now applying this one. My appeal to everybody, and not only Filipinos, this can also happen to other people. Let's try to, to me, it begins with the mind. You are my brother. He is my brother. We are siblings from different mothers. And so, yes, let's love one another, regardless of odor. If God can take our odor, which is really loathsome, that sin problem, why can we not take this odor? And for all you know, how do you know that the person smells? You don't know because in the first place, you moved away. Do you think you really smell? You did not even smell. Because before you even got to smell that person, you were already away. You were already covering your nose. If ever there are some instances, it can be one or two. And I can smell, anybody can smell. It's not the problem of only one race. Okay, I'm sorry. I gave you a sermon.
Thank you so much. I think we need to put our hands together for that powerful answer. I want to add something because she's my sister. So I need to add something. She spoke from the Filipino perspective. I'm speaking from the black perspective. I like what you said, that everybody has a smell. Yep. Really? If you spend 2-3 days without taking a shower, guess what? You'll smell. It doesn't matter. You're black, white, brown, green, blue. You will stink. So let's recognize that as the beginning. Number two, if you leave your house without taking a shower, hello? And somebody does that, don't be offended. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Filipino or Asian or what from the Pacific. It is true that some have had experience where you haven't even entered the bus and the nose is is already covered. That's a different story. But if you left home without taking a shower, no matter what your race is, and people do that, don't feel offended. Next time, take a shower first, put that little perfume, and go again. And if somebody does that, then you know that is something else. When I was a student here, sometimes, talking about blacks, we were like 10 black people on this campus. That was in 2000. We were very few. You'd walk on the streets of Manila and not see a black man or black lady. Everywhere we'd go would be pointed fingers. I remember one common thing that used to be done was if somebody saw a black man, they will make a cross because wow, I have seen a black man. You know what? At first I was offended, but later on I learned to do the same thing. Whenever I would enter the bus, I will quickly scan the bus, and if somebody did the cross, I will look at them and make sure they're looking at me, and I'll do the cross too. And immediately it will end. And if you're black today and you get on the bus and nobody's doing that to you, you need to come and pay some fees to me because we did the battle for you. We're going to the next one who was approved. That was Carol. And we'll see if we can still get a couple more, but let's see first.
Yeah, this topic about racial discrimination is really very interesting to me because I have seen it within India itself, among us, because of the caste. When I came here to study, I never saw an end to it. I'm boldly saying it because I think in God's eyes we're all equal. But this question of mine is like this. Yes, we have a forum like this, I'm happy. But when will it be in reality that we will put racial discrimination to an end? We are the remnant that God has chosen us. We say that. But still among us, we still have this. And sometimes it pains my heart to even hear from another, for example, if there's a person who's learning the language, and sometimes teachers even label their own students. The Indonesians are better than the Chinese, or the Chinese are better than the Koreans. I don't like to hear that. So this is a question, when will it be in reality?
I think that is a question of more self-reflection, all of us to reflect on, than somebody having an answer here. One of the things that was mentioned in one of the sessions was that as long as we are in this world, it will continue. Sorry, we can improve using some of the strategies that have been shared here, but we do not see this coming to an end until Jesus comes back. We're going to try to go up to 6, so we'll take maybe 2 more questions. I will give preference to those who have not spoken, please. Let's go to my brother from Germany, I think, and then one from the Pacific. So we have representation from the world. Let's start with Germany. You're from Germany, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad I got it right.
In Germany, we learn from our experience because of racism, and today we are a multicultural country that we prefer actually sometimes foreigner more than the own people. So we have actually almost inverted racism against the own people. This is many times happened. So when I came to the Philippines to study here, I was never confronted with racism, because in our country people tell you always racism is negative. Because of since the Second World War, you are indoctrinated with that stuff. Racism is negative. So you come here to the Philippines and you are exposed to racism. Why? Because of you're Westerner. You hear a teacher talk in a class that he doesn't like the Westerners because of their missionary activities in the Philippines. How you feel? You're offended because he's talking maybe in Visayas or other language, and you cannot understand it. And you're the only one who is white. He doesn't like white people. How you feel? And this goes maybe for 2 years. You experience this. You don't talk anything about it because you don't know how to handle that. And then I experienced also that there's actually nothing done to protect students. When you experience in such an environment, what can you do? You can do nothing. You just experience it because of your white skin. And then you say, only because of my white skin I get lesser grades because I'm from the Western country? I'm from Germany? This is unbelievable. You know, we are paying so much money to the Philippines when there's disaster, and then I experience that as a white person. So I said to myself, this is unbelievable. But the worst thing was, you know, there was actually no really a consequence for the teacher. There was only then, yeah, okay, we just keep silent, we don't want to ruin our reputation, blah, blah, blah. We just keep it silently. We just make it between us. And I think it must be shared in public to all the students. We don't tolerate any racism, and we are not accepting any such behavior, and especially against foreigners.
Let's put our hands together for this statement. It should be emphasized intentionally. And somebody had mentioned that earlier, that during orientation, it should be made clear that racial discrimination should not be tolerated. Whether it's in the classroom, in church, in meetings like this, it should not be tolerated. And I'm very glad that you brought this, allow me to say it, the white perspective on this, because for blacks, they may think that, oh, white people don't get any discrimination. Christina doesn't get any discrimination. This is a clear example of a group that usually is privileged because everybody wants to be white, from what we heard with the change in the color, everything. But it doesn't mean that white people will not get segregated against. And that's a very, very typical example. I used to live in the Caribbean, and I heard the same thing. And it was also linked to the historical events of what white men had done in the Caribbean, that specific country, before. And so anybody who was white in that country is like, don't really want to associate with you because of what white people did to us. And in that country, as a black man, although it was not populated by blacks were still minority, I would walk tall. I had more privileges as a black person than a white person. And so I hear your pain. I don't know if you have experienced something like that, because he's talking about the ministry. How do you handle that when that happens?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's the responsibility of the organization in any situation to protect minority. It's not a good suggestion. It's policy. It's mandatory to protect minority in any given situation and to listen. And I would say we too, in our own experience, home experience, if you allow me to give this example, that we also have minorities. The white community is minority in our country, and so it is in the church as well. So the church is deliberate to protect the white minority who are there. You know, the members, as it were, and so forth, because of a host of dynamics that go along with the people group and so forth. And when we do that, we are being sensitive. We taking a step of intentionality rather than assuming and giving a very good picture. You know what happens all the time when we have visitors coming to assess an institution, accreditation, and so forth. We want the best portrait of who we are. But you'll agree with me that students who are here, they've been administrators. They've also hosted accreditation. They know pretty much what goes on there. And they're very much privy to what's going on. And so we should come to wherever we go, wherever we will serve, to underscore that we should not affirm stereotypes. Let's do the best that we can, who we are. I'm here to do academics, and I must prove my point. There are people who sometimes even brag and say, well, I don't have to do so much because the teacher is going to favor me, in one way or the other in some institutions. That doesn't happen here because we do professionalism here. But in some places that happens. And should we just, put a blind eye to that? No. And I go back again to what I said earlier on and dovetail it to one other element to say, look, we may not be able to change everybody in the world. And it is not your responsibility to change people. You will not be able to. When you confront with discrimination, respond to it in a responsible way. Don't get out of the experience double angry. You will not change people that way. I like what you mentioned earlier on and what she alluded to as well, that turn the situation into something else. We have experienced all this. One time I'm walking, and not here, it was in a European country, and a mother is pushing, a baby, and they're moving on, and the baby is really turning their head to see this dark-skinned, and the mother is trying to prevent that, and I ran back, and I knelt down, and I looked at this little kid, and I said, hi, give me 5, and so she gave me 5, and I said, hi, mommy and dad, how about a selfie together? Yeah. And so we have a portrait, and the little girl, she really had a wonderful day, and so she was even doing this, this is their first encounter. And so I told them, she's intelligent enough to recognize a difference. And I'm lecturing the parents. Isn't she intelligent? Isn't she smart to see at her age she can tell this is different? And she wants more sight about it. So turn this situation into something sweet. Don't be offended and grow goose pimples all the time. Mandela said, I fought white racism, and I fought black racism, and he fought Indian racism, all forms of what? Isms that are negative. And so I would say, be at peace first. And when you confront it, you will do so in a responsible way.
Thank you so much. We'll take just one more question because it's almost time. Just one thing I wanted to add there, P.S., for the foreign students we have here, and for those of you who may be watching and you'll be traveling to the Philippines, in this country it's a culture of pictures. And so, if somebody approaches you, they want to take a picture, do not feel offended. It's perfectly fine. I used to be offended when I first came, but I've discovered that it's part of the fun. When we hear that it's more fun in the Philippines, part of it is the pictures. But on the other side, foreigners, when you're here, it's not proper for you to go around taking pictures of people without even asking them permission. Just think about it. If somebody came and they took picture of you without permission, the same feeling you have is the same feeling that they're having. Because it's like you come from with this superiority complex. that you're imposing on them. That's why you're taking pictures of them without asking them permission. And so, as much as we want to enjoy the pictures, let's ask permission. Let's do it in a fun way, not in a way of imposing our superiority on them. We're going to take the last question. So I know we have more, but we're going to have to take this as the last one. And after that, we can have something informal. But this is officially the last question.
Thank you for the opportunity. It won't be a question, but just a comment. And I've just highlighted 3 things. Well, we have a very wonderful afternoon, and that is because we left our place and we started moving. And when we started moving, we come to discover and appreciate different cultures. Some may not think well. That's why we are here, to listen to it and then to gain understanding. I have 3 just points that probably we may ponder upon wherever we may be going, and probably it may be also a good information for others. The first thing I would say is be open-minded. I think open-mindedness sets the foundation to be to know that things like this exist. So moving and traveling, we need to be open-minded that there is racism. And whenever there is open-mindedness, the second thing is understanding. I lived for 6 years here studying. And like Dr. Safari, I had this experience, but I came to understand that when somebody speaks to you or say, oh, black man, like that, sometimes I came to realize that there is a way of connecting to you. Before, I never realized that. And probably the lack of vocab, the only words that they know is nigger or black, and their intention is not really to discriminate. They're trying to establish connection. Because in some cultures, it's nice to be connected with somebody foreign. So if we have this open-mindedness, and if we have this understanding, probably we may be in a better way to respond to this attitude. And my last point is, be a change agent. You know, we know this will continue, and some said that it will end when finally God will, change our physique and everything only with the voice, because you cannot see the voice. You can just hear. So be a change agent. I was listening to somebody who says when he goes to the market, the price changes. I have a solution for that. You have the choice to be like that. But, I have a secret for that. And you might want to follow. I learned the language. And the price even goes below the expected. I have a chance to go down to Divisoria at times with my wife. My wife is a Filipina. And I am the negotiator. Yeah. Because if I come across the person that speaks the language that I know, I will buy that almost free. So be a change agent. When something is thrown to you, don't be like a stone. Because we just come to realize that this will continue. Don't be like a stone to repel. And I think that goes along with what Pastor had said. Let us be like mud. And Paul stated it very well in Romans. Do not be overcome, chapter 12, with evil, but overcome evil with good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We want to thank everybody for being here. I know we have more questions and more comments, but we have run out of time. We thank you so much for your patience, and we thank you for those who are watching online and those who are watching on TV. Thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a great joy to learn from different perspectives, from different countries, different cultures, trying to understand this issue of racial discrimination. We encourage you to pick a few of the points that we have discussed and implement them in your own life to live peacefully with people and to treat people with dignity no matter what race or cultural background they come from. Until we meet again next time, we want to encourage you to remain united in diversity. And if you have questions for us, please email us at united@ias.edu. Again, the email address is united@ias.edu. And see you next time when we have the next program.